Qué Golazo, YouTube friends. Hit like and subscribe as we look ahead to the weekend filled with Premier League grudge games, the Copa del Rey final, and much more. Let's go. Manchester United traveled to the Emirates for a top 4 6-pointer while Anfield hosts a tale of 2 Merseyside teams. We've got Rome run-ins for the Serie A frontrunners, Der Klassiker in the Bundesliga, the Copa del Rey final in Spain, and the possibility of PSG clinching a 10th Ligue title. I'm Michael Lahoud alongside Jimmy Conrad and Jonathan Johnson. Qué Golazo begins now.
Oh, baby, let's get after it. Hey, everybody, I'm back. I just invited myself to the party. What's up, JJ? Great to see you as always.
Hey, great to be back with you. And yeah, long time no see, Jimmy.
All right, Lahoud, where are we starting, Lahoud? Where are we starting?
We're just going to run right into the mixer. Good to see you again. Jimmy, how's the morning going? What are your thoughts on today? How are you feeling?
I feel great, as always. I'm excited to talk about Arsenal, Manchester United. I know that Erik ten Hag is probably the worst-kept secret of all time. He's now the official manager of Manchester United. And that dude has a lot of work to do. And I think it's going to start with just the culture of the club. It has nothing to do with on the field, I think, at the moment. It's more about, can we get an identity? I think that's the biggest issue for Manchester United. When I watched them play against Liverpool, one team has a clear identity. Doesn't matter who plays. They know how they should move within that. And I'm talking about Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. And the other one looks like everybody's pointing fingers and doesn't really know how to move around and where they should go and how they should press. And that is a recipe for disaster. And we have disaster on our hands, Michael Lahoud. But I'm curious as to what JJ has to say about Arsenal, Manchester United.
To be honest, I think, players pointing fingers, if United players could have been bothered to even do that in midweek, they probably wouldn't have received the spanking that they did. I'm amazed that Mike Lahoud has managed to dig out a United jersey at home. I thought he would have burned them after what we saw this midweek.
Oh man, hey, when you're in the hot seat and the host seat, I now feel the banter, and the banter is warm. The banter is real. I don't give up on my team. You don't give up on your team. I still believe, just not right now. I'm excited for this signing. And question for you guys: how do you think he'll fare? Ten Hag becoming the official manager for Manchester United. How do you think he's going to fare in his first season?
I'll go first, JJ. I'll say that what I find interesting is how long or how much patience is the board going to have? How much patience are the fans going to have? Because I feel like they have to start from the bottom. They really have to get out some players. I'm still surprised that Ralph Rangnick was like, after the Liverpool game, we need to get rid of about 10 people. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You're basically killing the end of your season. The players hate you now, 100%. You've made it official. And you've also now indicated that you hate them in return. So I don't know what that locker room is looking like, but it doesn't look fun. So he's not inheriting a team on the up and up. He's inheriting a team that's in disarray. And that's just going to take some time. Now, I'm sure Donny van de Beek is thrilled because he played for him. So when they recall him back from Everton, which isn't going that well either. I mean, it's just from one dumpster fire to another for Donny van de Beek. I think that Ten Hag, again, he's just got to figure out a way to get everybody rowing the boat in the same direction. That means the scouts, in terms of the types of players they want to recruit, the ones that are going to fit, the ones that they're going to have to quote unquote tolerate until Ten Hag can maybe push them out the door for salary reasons or contractual reasons. And then he can start to implement a system that I think looks like a system and looks like an identity for the club. I just don't know if the fans and the board or all are going to have the patience to see it out, because Manchester United demand results right away.
Yeah, I mean, this is, to be honest, it feels like I'm on familiar territory, because this is kind of the process that PSG go through every couple of years when they change coach. And obviously, Pochettino won't be the guy doing the rebuild at Old Trafford as many expected. But I think what I'm really curious to see is, first of all, how Ten Hag reacts to being in and around the squad, sort of how the early days of preseason are. Because as much as Rangnick says that there is going to be this mass exodus of players, it's not that simple. It never is. PSG, talk big about, moving on a lot of their dead wood, yet a lot of those players are still around. So it's really up to the new coach, how he comes in, tries to get everybody back on side and at least give everyone a clean slate to start with. Because as much as there is a temptation to absolutely, go through every position in the team, do sort of like a stem and root reform. It's not always that easy to pull off, especially, in just a couple of weeks and months that you have in the summer. It's something that's going to take years. And I think, there are some early moves there that are going to make this transition a lot more easy. You've already got this overhaul of the scouting department that's coming. How Rangnick moves upstairs as well is going to be very interesting to see, that one playing out. And also, there's always going to be sort of unexpected rapports built up between a new manager and players, players that perhaps we're thinking right now they're definitely going to be out of the door, and then suddenly, first day of training, Ten Hag sees something that he thinks that he can use. I'm curious to see who those guys are going to be. But I was speaking to Fabrizio Romano, a good friend on the show, just the other day, and I asked him a similar question. And to be honest, I share his point of view at this moment in time. I think it's a very, very difficult task that he's walking into, and one that I'm not necessarily, that confident that he's going to succeed in at this moment in time. I certainly don't wish him failure. I just think that there is a lot of work for him to do, even before he hits the pitch with the players on day one.
I mean, I'll really quick. I know we want to talk about the Arsenal game, but who, JJ? I mean, who can come in and salvage this? I don't know if there's any name out there that I can think of that
I can
make. Okay, go ahead, Michael Lude.
No, kidding.
I really don't know. I don't know that name. It's not readily available because every single manager is going to need a little bit of time. We thought Antonio Conte could be the solution, and he struggled at Spurs for a while. He had an initial imprint on it, and then it dropped off, and now it's coming back up. But even the top managers in the world would struggle with this situation. It's a poison chalice at the moment, but we'll see if Ten Hag can be a miracle worker.
Speaking of miracles that happened this week, the Arsenal doing the business against Chelsea, which sets up a marquee matchup between Manchester United and Arsenal at the Emirates. What do you guys think about this game? JJ, we'll start with you. United coming off an absolute battering at Anfield. It doesn't get any easier as they go to an Arsenal team at the Emirates. It's coming off a massive win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, for me, it's difficult to look past Arsenal at this moment in time. There is that bounce, that feel-good factor. They've gone to Chelsea, come away with a very impressive win. And, suddenly things look a bit brighter again. Their hopes of cementing a top four finish, have received a massive boost. And, I feel like we've said this so many times about United in the last couple of weeks. If they're anything but fully focused, and let's face it, they rarely are these days. The chances are that they're going to give their opponents, at least a point. We've seen teams like Everton, beating them, getting unexpected points recently. I don't see that changing. I mean, especially as you guys have already mentioned with, Rangnick coming out and saying that half of these guys could be on the move this summer. I don't think that's going to help, change the mood either. You've got the whole Paul Pogba situation simmering, maybe there's even an argument that now it's official, that Ten Hag is coming in. Maybe there's even some communication now between Rangnick and Ten Hag where they can start saying okay, this guy's not going to be here next season. Maybe we start using other players so that Ten Hag can actually get a look at some of these guys ahead of time instead of looking at players performing who don't want to be there, who we know are not going to be there beyond this summer. Obviously, a thinly veiled mention of Paul Pogba there.
Yeah. I mean, I think he might be headed to Real Madrid, or at least that's the rumors I'm seeing right now, JJ, or even back to Juventus, which would be interesting. I think this could be his last summer, though, and with United, and we'll see how that all plays out. Let's talk about Arsenal, though. What a win. And kind of coinciding with Chelsea self-destructing in this particular season. I know they play West Ham, so that's an interesting time for them to rebound. I will say this Arsenal team's a bit confusing. They'd lost 4 out of their previous 5 heading into the Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge. They lose to Brighton, they lose to Crystal Palace, and they go to Stamford Bridge and get a crazy result. And something I think they can kick on and give them some confidence to finish in top 4. Mikel Arteta said after the game that was their game in hand. And as you just saw with the table that's up there, both them and Spurs are tied for 57 points. Better goal difference for Spurs. They play against each other very, very soon. So that could determine who finishes and gets a spot in the Champions League. And Arteta challenged his team. He basically said before the game, he said this afterwards, if you guys want to be playing in the Champions League next season, you have to show that you can compete against the biggest teams that do play in it regularly. And I think the team really responded to that. And if that's the Arsenal we're going to see for the rest of the season, I think they will get the top 4 spot. But we'll have to wait and see. I think with regard to United, Cristiano Ronaldo did train after playing against Liverpool. Obviously, he's going to be given all the time that he needs and should be given all the time that he needs. But he seems like a guy that wants to play, that there's a lot of escapism from your sadness and sorrows by getting on the field and getting after it. If he comes back, that could be a motivating factor, an X factor in terms of emotional X factor that could maybe see United get a result here, or at least get a goal in some capacity. So I don't know. When it comes down to which team has an identity and which one doesn't, I'm going to lean on the one that does have the identity. I think Arsenal will get the win here. And if you want Arsenal to win and both teams to score, because I could see a 2-1 here in favor of the Gunners, that's plus 300. I like that value a lot.
I love your thoughts, fellas. And now let's jump to Liverpool Everton. But just one thought on that. I think this is going to be one special run-in for Arsenal and Spurs, North London derby. I think that's where the Premier League could be decided for that 4th spot. But moving on to Liverpool, Everton, Merseyside derby, and really a different sort of Merseyside derby. 2 teams at 2 different ends of the table. Super Frank and Jurgen Klopp going toe-to-toe, Liverpool, Everton. What are your thoughts going into this one? Liverpool, just a runaway train, freight train. Everton, after United win, looking back to woes as we see it.
I'll go first on this one, JJ. This is going to be like a training exercise, I think, for Liverpool, very similar to what we saw against Manchester United, who's another big rival. I don't see where Liverpool are going to lose this game. There's really no narrative you can give me other than Richarlison. He's going to get 1 or 2 chances, and if he can score those chances, then maybe I'll give Everton a little bit of fight in them. But we just saw this past midweek that against Leicester, Richarlison had 2 clear-cut chances, missed them both, and then had to have one super crazy deflected goal go in at the end for them to salvage a 1-1 draw, which I think could be a very valuable 1 point because that puts them 5 points ahead or 4 points ahead of Burnley for that last spot, as opposed to them losing would only been 3. That'd get a little bit more dicey. We call him Frank Lampfraud over here because I don't know how good of a manager he really is, but they have to score their opportunities, and I'm still not sold on their defenders. I mean, ultimately, their Achilles heel this whole season. Everton has been their back line, and then you need Jordan Pickford to probably make like 15 saves a game, and that's never a good look for that to happen. I just don't see at any point where Liverpool loses this game outside of them doing it to themselves, kind of like we're seeing with Chelsea, who are self-destructing and creating really bad errors, which is then giving the other team confidence, and that other team goes on to get the result. But this Liverpool team's peaking at the right time. This is one-way traffic. I don't know. What do you think, JJ?
Yeah, I agree. I can't really see past Liverpool for this one. I mean, it's one of those games where, I mean, I guess you could throw out the old cliche that the form book goes out of the window because it's a rivalry. But I mean, in terms of form, you know, I really expect Liverpool to. I mean, to be honest, I would have expected more the result that we saw midweek from Liverpool against Everton than against United. But I wouldn't put it past Jurgen Klopp's men to do it to both teams at this moment in time. You know, they just. Like you said, you know, the runaway train is a good way of looking at Liverpool at the moment because they have that momentum going for them, and it's difficult to see anyone stopping them. Going up against Villarreal in the Champions League, I don't see them being stopped there either. It's for me, it's going to take a lot to stop Liverpool. Crushing all who stand in their way between now and the end of the season. But I actually think the thing that could impact this game is actually the match that's going to be played after we finish recording this. We're recording on the Thursday. You've got that clash between Burnley and Southampton in the Premier League. That could really light a fire under Everton. And when we saw them with their backs against the wall, yeah, okay, they were up against a United side with very little left to play for this season. But also at the same time, you know, when they have that sort of desperation, you see teams start to pull performances, pull unexpected results out of the bag. And for Everton to even walk away from this game with a point, you know, that would be a big, big bonus. So I think if Burnley were to win on Thursday, you know, that suddenly puts a lot of pressure on Everton to go out and get that result, put in the sort of performance that their fans need to see from them against Liverpool. Even if they were to go down valiantly, you know, give themselves some hope between now and the end of the season, because right now it would look pretty bleak, especially if Burnley claim all the points against the Saints later.
One thing too, Lahoud, I'll jump in and say that's great insight, and that Burnley game will have massive influence, I think, on this game as well. So I love that, JJ. But it's the fact that Liverpool get to host leg one against Villarreal next week. if they had to travel down to Spain for leg one, I could see maybe Jurgen Klopp rotating his squad, feeling like, all right, we're going to have to travel. We have to think about all these things that go in. They've had the benefit. The scheduling gods have looked down upon them where they had Man United at home, Everton at home, and now they get Villarreal in the first leg of the Champions League semifinals at home. And there's something about it, and we all know this. You sleep at home. You get to sleep in your bed. You get to you know, you're surrounded by incredible support throughout this 10 days. And everybody's got your back, and they're playing well.
Who's the incredible support? The cuddly toys in your bed.
I'm saying when they walk outside. Hey, you know what? Maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold has a security blanket. I don't even know. But something's going right for him, and I don't know. That's a great question. But I would say, just anytime they walk outside the house, I'm sure they're getting a ton of support. Whereas, let's say you were a Manchester United player and you're walking outside your house, probably a different vibe at the moment. So I think the scheduling gods have looked down upon them favorably.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you guys more. You definitely have to like Liverpool's odds in this one. Last thought on this, score predictions. Both of you seem really high on the red side of the Merseyside derby. What are your thoughts on how this game's going to finish up?
I'll go first. I'm going to say 3-1 Liverpool. And to be honest, I think that shout for an Everton goal is fairly generous. For me, I just can't see Everton doing this one. So I'm going to say 3-1.
Well, I don't know if I'm high on anything. It's 421, Lahoud, and not 420 anymore. But terrible joke. I'm going to say Liverpool win with a clean sheet. I think it's a 2-0. Maybe they might not even get into fifth gear at this point to really push. I think Everton's defense is so bad. They score early, and then Everton's going to be trying to push. They'll get hit on the counter, and that'll be it. But it could be 2 or 3-0. That's minus 112. I don't like to swim in the negative waters in the betting world, but that's pretty good value. I just outside of Richarlison finishing his 1 or 2 chances, he'll get one. It's just a matter of whether he scores it. And I don't think he's in good confidence right now. Good form.
Moving on to another London derby, Chelsea versus the Hammers. It's hammer time from West Ham. Big matchup for the Blues after getting spanked at home against Arsenal, the mighty Arsenal. And West Ham coming off just European glory and putting themselves with a really good chance of winning a European trophy. Going into this game, so many storylines. David Moyes getting the best out of his West Ham team. What do you think of West Ham in this matchup?
I mean, I think West Ham right now, they're treading on quite fragile ground because I was happy to see them advance in the Europa League as much as it came at the expense of Lyon, who I did hope would go all the way for the good of French football. I know a lot of people who support West Ham and are absolutely delighted with this European run they're going on at the moment. I felt that they lost a bit of momentum recently in the Premier League in the shake-up for Europe. And I think they're coming into this game against Chelsea at the right time. Chelsea, they seem to have been deflated a little bit of late, just gone out of Europe, now getting absolutely spanked at home against Arsenal. And then, now coming up against West Ham, a local rivalry, and West Ham suddenly have a bit of wind in their sails again, after their exploits in Europe. So for me, I think that this is, great timing really for this match for David Moyes and his players. And I think that West Ham will certainly feel confident or more confident than they did, say, a week or so ago about taking the points here. And even so, I think, still a point at this stage of the season is not completely disastrous for them.
Yeah, I agree with JJ. I'd also add that West Ham are 5 points adrift from fourth, and they have played one more game than Arsenal and Tottenham. So it's not looking as good to maybe have that fight. Obviously, every point's going to matter, and they still want to get into the Europa League. Now, they can still get into the Champions League next year if they win the Europa League. They're playing against Eintracht Frankfurt in leg 1 of the semifinals this upcoming week at the London Stadium. So they have that to look forward to as well. This Chelsea team, though, after conceding 4 goals at home for the second consecutive game, it's a crazy stat here. They've conceded as many goals at Stamford Bridge in 2 matches in April as they did from October to March of this season. That's wild. And obviously they have struggled, Chelsea, at home as of late. They've lost 4 out of their last 5 at Stamford Bridge. West Ham have only won 2 out of the last 6 away from home. So it's looking like a draw to me. I actually like the 1-1 here, plus 320. Pretty good value there on the draw because I just don't know which version of Chelsea is going to show up. Thomas Tuchel looks incredibly frustrated. And David Moyes and his crew know that they want to be pretty tight and sharp, right? Because that's going to lead you into having some good confidence and feeling good about your first leg against a upstart Eintracht team that took care of Barcelona over 2 legs. So I could see a draw here. That's me maybe reaching a bit because Chelsea does seem to respond at times, but they seem like, to JJ's point, maybe the wind went out of their sails a little bit when they got knocked out of Europe.
I think as well with Chelsea, the sale process now of the club is dragging on a lot, and it's difficult to argue that it's not impacting the players at some level. There's a few players that we know are not going to be there next season, moving on. And there's some players who are perhaps getting close to. Not going to necessarily say their expiry date, but they're no longer in the primes of their careers. And I think that Chelsea, once the sale process is taken care of, they have a lot of tough decisions to make moving forward to the future. And I'm sure Thomas Tuchel is going to want to have a say because he's gotten pretty much the maximum out of this team since his arrival. And I think it's only natural that there was going to be some, downturn in form at some point. We just didn't expect it to come in the fashion that it has arrived with those defeats against the likes of Brentford, Real Madrid, and now obviously Arsenal as well.
I love what you say. Jimmy, you and I know that experience from what we went through at Chivas. And as players, it just has so many ramifications. What happens at the top, it always filters down to the bottom and into the locker room. Final thoughts in the English Premier League from both of you. JJ, you go first.
You know what? I'm praying for a positive result for Villa because given the way that things have dropped off for us recently, we really could do with a pick me up. Leicester, not the easiest place to go, and I'm not particularly confident about our chances, but we really need a few points because looking at the way that we're dropping down towards that relegation zone, I'm grateful for some of the points we picked up recently because I just don't see where the next ones are coming from. So aside from that, when you're looking through all of those fixtures, Christian Eriksen, going up with Brentford against Spurs, potential audition for a return, to play for Tottenham from this summer onwards. Who knows? Did discuss that earlier in the week with Fabrizio Romano, and he suggested it's a possibility. So, I think there's no shortage of tasty fixtures this weekend.
Okay, conveniently left out my Newcastle, who are above Aston Villa on the table, by the way. 3 straight wins on the trot. I mean, almost top half of the table, tied with Brighton on 10 points. And listen, we haven't actually even really flexed and spent our big oil money at the moment. Bruno Guimaraes, obviously, now that he's getting valuable minutes, really proving his worth. But gotta love Eddie Howe. There's zero wins when Eddie Howe took over, and now they've got 10. It's unbelievable. I just want to give a shout out. They take on Norwich. I mean, they can keep this going. Imagine them scraping into the top half of the table after the start of that. So I'm curious to see how that goes. Also, for you bettors out there, Heung-min Son has scored every time he's played against Brentford this season, plus 100 to score anytime, and he is in good form, something to keep an eye on.
That's Jimmy Conrad, folks. He'll be here all day, clapping it up, jerseying it up. Gotta love it. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back with much more. Der Klassiker, Copa del Rey final, PSG, Serie A. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Qué Golazo. Michael Lahoud here, joined by Jimmy Conrad. You can call him James on this show because that's his official government name. One James Conrad, and the other part of the J team, Jonathan Johnson. Now let's shift. We talked English Premier League. Let's shift over to Italia, Serie A. Some marquee matchups happening, starting with Inter versus Roma. Jose Mourinho, revival a bit for Roma. Inter, they seem to have caught their second wind, and now we have a title race at the top and a lot to play for in this game. Take me through how this matchup's going to fare out.
Yeah, I'll go first on this. I just want to give a shout out to Inter and Juve, because the midweek they had the semifinals of the Coppa Italia. They're playing against each other in the final. It's the first time that Juve and Inter, who probably the biggest rivalry in all of Italy, are facing each other in the Coppa Italia final since 1965. So I thought that was a pretty cool stat. With regard to this particular game, Inter, as we're seeing the table, they're 2 points behind Milan at the top, but they have a game in hand. Roma has been fantastic. They, under Jose Mourinho, for all the hate that guy gets, and everybody thinks he's washed and he's past it and all that, they haven't lost a game in Serie A since January 9th, and that was the 4-3 loss at home to Juventus, when they should have won. They were up 3-1, and then Juve pulled off some incredible, improbable comeback. And prior to that, they lost to AC Milan at the start of the year. But since then, unbeaten in Serie A. Now they're currently sitting in 5th for a Europa League spot, only 5 points behind Juve. So they're still kind of scraping there with 5 points left to go. If Juve drop off at all, it could spell trouble if Roma gets after it. That said, I think Inter the better team. I still think that there's a conversation to be had about Edin Dzeko being handed over to Inter Milan to fill the boots of Romelu Lukaku, and I think he's done quite admirably given his age in particular. There may be some grief there. Dzeko used to be the captain of Roma, and the fact that they kind of just discarded him. I mean, as a player, and when you get discarded by one team, you definitely want to stick it to him when you had a chance to make that happen. But Tammy Abraham and Roma have been in good form. Zaniolo's starting to really peak at the right time for them to potentially push into the top 4. This is a great match. I think that Inter probably have a little bit too much, all things considered. But I wouldn't put it past Mourinho, given the form of Roma, to maybe scrape out a draw. I don't see Roma winning this one, but I could see a draw. How about you, JJ?
Yeah, I think Inter absolutely have to avoid defeat in this one. And for me, and I know I risk sounding like a broken record every time we speak about Serie A recently, but in that title race, it's all going to play on that game in hand that Inter have. Because I feel that's sort of their trump card really in this title race. And until every team has played the same amount of games, we're not really going to know how this title race is going to shape up. But it's not necessarily in that game in hand, where things will be won and lost if they do drop points against some of the more difficult opponents. And Roma, sort of coming into, the resurgence that they've enjoyed over these last couple of months, suddenly this game is a lot more difficult than it would have looked sort of a couple of weeks or months ago. So Inter, I think they absolutely cannot lose this. And Roma, will be one of their sterner tests between now and the end of the season. But I agree with Jimmy. I think that Inter maybe just have a little too much for Roma, but that doesn't mean, that they're not going to be made to work hard, for anything that they take away from this game. And like I said, I don't think a point would be the worst result, because it's not only them who's going to face, challenges between now and the end of the season. Every team gunning for that title, has tough fixtures coming up.
From one part of Rome to the other, let's shift to the other match. Lazio versus Milan. Milan not looking like the same team that beat this Inter side in a marquee matchup earlier this year. And Lazio, kind of you could say the same thing about them, really scraping at the heels of Roma. What do you guys see in this matchup? I think this game is going to be just as compelling as the previous game we talked about.
Well, I'll say that Lazio under Maurizio Sarri have shown glimpses of what they're capable of. You've seen some incredible performances from them, especially early on in the season with Ciro the Hero Immobile. Shout out to Ciro the Hero. And Milinkovic-Savic, who's now being linked to Manchester United to potentially fill in the spot of Paul Pogba if he leaves to go somewhere else. So they've got the quality. For me, it was always that back line. And I think that's been, I don't say Everton-esque. It hasn't been that bad, but they do bleed a lot of goals, and I think Milan could take advantage of it. Rafael Leao in particular, excellent player. Now, Lazio have played 33 games, and they're on 56 points for that last Europa League spot. Fiorentina are also on 56 points. Shout out to Vincenzo Italiano, the manager, who's done an excellent job, especially after losing Vlahovic, to keep that ship floating in the right direction or steered in the right direction. And they have a game in hand as well, similar to Inter. So you have this opportunity for Fiorentina, if Lazio continue to drop points, to maybe sneak into that last Europa League spot, which is of interest. And I think that puts a little pressure on Lazio to show up and do something, very similar to what we were talking about with Burnley and Everton. You have a little bit of somebody on your back ready to go. This Milan team, maybe not the best away from home, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, they're tied with Napoli, the best away team in the league. So I'll take that one back. They have 11 wins, 4 draws, and 1 loss away from home. Maybe they feel a little bit better playing away from home and then playing in the San Siro. Maybe the pressure of the home fans can get to teams at times. If you're not, I don't know. I feel like I'm making stuff up at this point. But this Milan team, it has the quality. I just was a little disappointed in how they played against Inter Milan in midweek in the Coppa Italia semifinals, losing 3-0. I just thought they weren't as sharp as they needed to be to have a chance. I mean, they're 90 minutes away from going to get a trophy or have a chance to win a trophy. And I just thought they threw up a lemon of a performance. Now, Lautaro Martinez was excellent and his movement was great. And Inter just seemed like they were making the plays that mattered. But we'll see how Milan responds. I think that Stefano Pioli, actually the manager of Milan, is better when they're playing against the bigger teams, but they didn't do that midweek. And they sometimes struggle with the teams that they should beat, and they should beat this one. And I wonder how this one's going to play out. So I'm almost curious about how this goes. I think Milan, knowing that they want to stay at the top, have to win. But sometimes when they know they have to win, it's when they struggle.
Yeah, there's a couple of really good points from Jimmy. Not often that we say that, but here we are.
AJ, coming in hot, man. Good morning.
I love it.
Genuinely, very interesting take on Milan, because I feel like at various times this season, and even the season before, we've seen Milan actually be better sort of as the chasing team. They almost don't fare better once they're actually at the top of the pile.
Good point.
Like Jimmy, I was really disappointed with that performance in the semi-final second leg against Inter. It's strange that they could keep the first leg so tight at 0-0, still have a very strong team out, and then get blown away 3-0. I mean, I know that a lot of people will say, but if Benessa's goal wasn't ruled out late on, still it was quite a pasting, all things considered. So for me, I feel like this Milan side, it's part of history repeating itself again, where they're wobbling once they look like, they've got one hand on the title. So although, it wasn't as clear as it was last season, I do feel like this Milan side, they almost need to experience some adversity, to have their backs against the wall. And I wonder if they're actually going to wait for the situation to get a little tougher, before they start to pick up. And I could see them dropping points here against a tough Lazio side.
Well, JJ, you talked about adversity. They just got adversity in the form of a drubbing and a backside hiding against their arch rival. So this might be the thing that kickstart them, as you asked for and just said. Let's shift over to Germany. Der Klassiker, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund. Doesn't get any bigger than that in the German Bundesliga. Bayern seems to be on to another Bundesliga title, but there seems to be a little bit of unsettlement in this Bayern camp, given what happened in the Champions League recently. How do you think this Bayern team is going to show up? Jimmy, we'll start with you.
I think they're going to show up. If they win this game, they clinch their 10th straight league title. To be able to do it at home against one of your biggest rivals, I think they're going to be up for it and ready to go. I think there's going to be some natural disappointment from getting knocked out of the Champions League in a way and against a team where they probably shouldn't. I think that Julian Nagelsmann, the young manager, has a lot to prove. And I think that he can at times have some naive tactics that don't necessarily go his way. And that's part of the process, right? Not everything is going to go exactly right for a manager of any age, but especially a younger one. Lewandowski has scored at least 2 goals against his former club 8 different times. So I feel like Lewandowski is going to show up in this one. I'll give you a good betting line once we're done kind of chatting about it overall. But when I look at the team that they can put out there, you got Davies on one side, you have potentially Gnabry on the other, and Musiala is starting to get more minutes in midfield under Muller and Goretzka and Kimmich. It's just they have some options. What I'm looking at now is they're going to go into a back 3. We'll see if it's a back 3, back 4. But you have a Dortmund team that when Erling Haaland is feeling it and ready to go, they can score goals at any time, whether he is the one providing the assist or scoring the goal or creating the space, because he dominates so much attention from the other team that his movement alone, if he's making a run into the channel, he's going to probably draw 2 defenders with him. That's going to open up gaps for other players to jump in. And if Marco Reus, when he's healthy, is obviously a top player. If he looks like he's going to start, I wish Gio Reyna was playing in this one because we want him to get as many big game minutes as possible, but he's out for the season. Jude Bellingham, obviously there's going to be a lot of interest around him to make a move this particular summer. So how much can they start to give him more confidence that he's going to be the guy, at least for the upcoming year? Because, they start losing Haaland to Man Cities and Bellingham to somewhere else, they could get really thin. And that means Bayern Munich is going to win the league for the next 30 straight years. But it's going to be a great game because it's at the Allianz, because Bayern know that they win this, they get to celebrate in front of their home fans. I think there's only one result, and that's a Bayern win.
Yeah, I feel like all of this chat in the last couple of weeks or so, has really built up to this moment where it's an opportunity for Haaland to not put himself back on our radars because he rarely ever slips off it, but, actually to sort of have more of the talking being done on the pitch than off it, because I feel like there's been so much talk about his future recently while we're still waiting to know where he'll be playing his football next season, that it's been a while since we've really seen him doing the business the way that he was sort of a couple of months ago on the pitch. So I'm curious to see if he can bring that one out against Bayern, because this Bayern team, they still seem so fragile. I'm really surprised by the developments recently where we're talking about Neuer and Muller potentially, being kept on. I mean, we discussed recently, the possibility of moving on some of these older guys. And okay, I understand that you probably need to keep some experience there, especially if Lewandowski is more likely to be off than staying. But, for me, I think I would have only kept on one of Neuer and or Muller. I don't see sort of what kind of project you can be trying to build, especially under a dynamic Julian Nagelsmann. Like Jimmy said, he's trying a lot of things tactically, maybe naively sometimes. And I think it's just because some of the players in this squad now can't do, what he's asking them to do. They're not dynamic enough. And I think there's certain positions, certainly in the defense, the all French defense. I've said my thoughts about it many times. I said I just don't think they're good enough, for a team of Bayern's caliber. So yeah, wouldn't surprise me to see them beat Dortmund, given their record in this fixture and their record in the league as a whole. But also, I think that, if Dortmund really want to give it a go, I think that, it's more likely now than ever that Bayern might crumble and they might actually be able to come away with the result and make Bayern wait that little bit longer for the league title.
JJ, we're going to just start labeling every time that French back line suits up for Bayern, lay crap. Because according to you, they got seep to lay crap. So let's just tie a bow on this. Score predictions. What do you have in this one? Jimmy, we'll start with you.
I'll go 3-2 Bayern Munich. If you want Bayern to win and both teams to score, plus 115 is pretty good value. And then if you want to add one more layer to that, Robert Lewandowski to score, Bayern to win, both teams to score, jumps up to plus 160. That feels like one of the certainties in life: death, taxes, and Robert Lewandowski scoring. But yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think it's going to be a great game. If you're going to make some time to watch a game this weekend, this would be one of them. Yeah,
I'm going to go for both teams to score. And I'm feeling Lewandowski and Haaland both scoring as well. So I'm going to go for 2-2. It wouldn't surprise me if one team does come out on top, and more likely Bayern than Dortmund. But I'm going to say 2-2.
Lahoud, what about you, man? You've been dodging all these predictions.
Leave me out of this, but I'll jump into this one. I'm going for an upset. I think Borussia Dortmund's going to win this one. It's always a high-scoring affair when these two get together. I'm going 3-2. Borussia Dortmund.
That's plus 800 if that hits for you.
Man, feeling the heat from your seats all the way from here.
Wow. Yep, I'm going to go and just be bold, try to be bold as much as I can. But this one, I actually really feel, I think Borussia Dortmund have so much to play for. A lot of players, individual, just contracts and things that could be next year. But we're going to move from bratwurst to paella Valenciana. Nice. Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do. Valencia going up against Real Betis in this Copa del Rey matchup. Betis shifting out of that top four race as of late, and Manuel Pellegrini struggling to get some of that hot start that the team had at the start of the season, struggling to keep pace and keep the team motivated. How do you think he can improve this team going into this matchup? JJ, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I've really got my fingers crossed for Betis. Obviously, a special place in my heart for them, and it would be huge for them, to be able to add a title, to their collection, sort of 2 decades on from the last one. But it's going to be tough. They're starting to falter a little bit, and I feel like they're kind of paying the price now for so much of what they were enjoying earlier in the season. Great La Liga form, a bit of an extended adventure in Europe as well. And I just wonder if they might have benefited slightly from dropping out of Europe a little earlier, because now we're seeing the limits of this squad, and when Betis are fully rested and have a full strength 11, they can play some fantastic football. Once the fans get behind them, it's difficult to stop them. But I feel like they've been relying on other teams' results to kind of keep them in that race in the top 4 in recent weeks. I mean, we were speaking, I think, ahead of last weekend about how Sevilla, maybe losing to Real Madrid might offer them a door back into the top 4, but it's just one that, they've not really been able to make the most of at this moment in time. And I think coming up against a Valencia side who will also be hungry for silverware, given how they used to, sort of be in the running for all of the domestic titles in Spain, whether it's the league, whether it's the cup. I fear for Betis because I don't want them to sort of get blown out because they're, you know, fatigued now because of everything they've given in the season so far. But alternatively, you know, if there is one game to prioritize between now and the end of the season for Betis, it's this one. You know, the chance to write themselves into folklore, send Joaquin out with, you know, silverware just before he retires. You know, it would be a fantastic next chapter to what's been a great story. I don't think we really need to sort of, you know, cast light on everything that Pellegrini has done and say that it's not been good enough, because to get Betis to where they are at this moment in time, for them to even be a factor in a potential race for the top four, you know, is already a fairly significant achievement in itself.
Yeah, I want to ride the coattails of that statement about Betis. I really appreciate what Pellegrini's done. He's on the precipice of winning them their first Copa del Rey since 2005. They've only won 2 in their history. The other one was in 1977. Valencia's won 8. The last time they won was in 2019 when they beat Barcelona in the final. Now, Betis are also 3 points off of top 4 with 5 games left to go. Sevilla do have a game in hand. They're 3 points behind Sevilla for that 4th spot. But if you would have asked any Betis fans, hey, would you love to be in a Copa del Rey final and, you know, be in this situation at this point in the season? They'd be like, hell yeah, dude, that would be amazing. Pellegrini is a goddamn miracle worker. And that's what's played out. And I know that they lost this past week at home, which was a crucial loss this midweek to Elche, which has to be crushing, but they're playing against a Valencia team that's only won 1 out of their last 6. And Betis beat them earlier in the season 4-1. And sometimes you just have a team's number. I did think that Betis, who did rest a player or two against Elche, will be a little bit more ready to go in this. And when I look at who Betis had to play along the way to get to the final, I mean, they beat Sevilla, they beat Real Sociedad, they beat Real Valladolid. I mean, they beat some pretty good teams. And then when I look at what Valencia and who they had to beat, they had Cadiz and Athletic Bilbao. That was the only 2 significant La Liga teams that they had to beat to get to this point. And I just feel like Betis maybe cut their teeth against a little bit better teams, with all due respect to Cadiz and Bilbao. I like Betis to do the business. I like Juanmi and Nabil Fekir and Sergio Canales to really run that front 3. Hopefully under Borja Iglesias. I love the Panda. He's the best. And so, and then with Valencia, I guess the only thing that I'm pulling for is maybe Yunus Musa from a U.S. men's national team perspective. I don't know if he's going to start this one. From what I've seen from projected lineups, it doesn't look like he's going to start, but I'd love for him to be, again, very similar to what I was saying about Gio Reyna. We want our younger players to get as much experience in the biggest of games as possible, because that's going to help us when World Cup time rolls around. So I hope Yunus Musa has some type of involvement, a significant involvement in this game. And I guess that would be the number one thing I'm looking for. But I think Betis are going to win this one. And it would be an incredible achievement for the club and Manuel Pellegrini in particular.
I think as well, when you're looking at guys like Fekir, I mean, you look at what's going on behind the scenes at Betis at the moment, some of the contract extensions that they've managed to pen. This is a squad that's now going to be kept together, you know, sort of for the foreseeable future, at least, you know, for another season. And I think if they've been able to show this campaign, you know, if they manage to get some silverware, you know, to take back to, you know, to home and, you know, rebuild this summer, add a couple of key pieces, you know, they could really be a force to be reckoned with next season. We've spoken at length about how we expect, you know, the race for the title to be a lot tighter next season, you know, with Atletico Madrid maybe back in better health, Barcelona sort of strong from the very start of the season, as opposed to basically missing half of this campaign, you know, and Real Madrid, you know, how will they rebuild? Because as strong as they've been domestically this season, you know, they are not getting any younger. We don't yet know whether Kylian Mbappe will be part of the rebuild that comes this summer, because that rebuild is coming, you know, whether Real Madrid fans like it or not. So I think Betis, you know, a piece of silverware now would go a long way to positioning them well to sort of be a force in terms of European qualification moving forward.
What I think in this matchup I'm looking forward to most is not just Betis potentially winning Copa del Rey, but could there be a shift in the powers that be in the city of Sevilla, where now the changing of the guard happens if they do this and then pip Sevilla to get that Champions League spot, that 4th spot. So something to keep an eye on as this season comes to a conclusion. And speaking of conclusions, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It continues to be the absolute most horrific of times in Paris. PSG, though, have a chance to win another league title. I feel like no matter what happens in the Champions League, this is the storyline we talk about. PSG versus Lens. or how do you lens? Excuse my English.
Lens.
Is there something to talk about? What do you guys see in this, apart from the obvious, PSG winning another title? It's just been calamity in the Champions League. But is there something to celebrate for PSG?
You know what? I'm going to let Jimmy take a crack at this first. I have a couple of things to say, but one thing that I do want to put to Jimmy as well as his thoughts on this match is we discussed in midweek, Mike and I with James Benge, the whole furore surrounding PSG, and when they win this Ligue 1 title, which they're going to, it's going to be a record equaling 10th title, which means that they and Saint-Etienne are the only clubs who can put a star above their badge on the shirt. Marseille obviously have one, but that's for the Champions League success. And there's debate over whether PSG should do it or not, because it sounds like they're not going to do it above the badge, but they're going to do it sort of on the sleeve as part of the league badge. So, what do you make of that? We've already had Ben's thoughts, Mike's thoughts, my thoughts. I'm curious to know what Jimmy's are now.
I guess I don't know. I guess having it and acknowledging it in a way that maybe isn't as obvious as maybe Marseille and Saint-Etienne do, but I don't mind it on the side. I think that's one way to acknowledge it without putting it right in your face. Maybe if they had won it in a different way, maybe, I don't know. That's a tough one. I have to really kind of think and sit with that. With my smoking pipe and by a fire, and just really contemplate what I want to do, how I want to.
Bob Marley playing in the background.
Yeah, of course. Got to shout out Bob Marley and my Ajax kit, the one that I'm wearing. But when I think about PSG overall, and this is me now deflecting and not answering that question.
This is Jimmy the Marseille fan talking as well.
Yes. I just wonder what happens. There's been what happens with this team. That's so they're going to have this moment. They're going to celebrate. They're going to beat Lens and they're going to go on to win the Ligue 1 title, an expectation that they clearly have at the start of every season. And they wanted to regain it after losing it to Lille last season. So I guess there was some energy to do that. What happens to this team? I feel like you got to blow them up a little bit. I don't even know if Pochettino is going to be the coach. Are they still going to be owned by the same owners? There's a lot of question marks, especially about the players and the contracts and who's going where and who's staying. And this is an interesting, of all the clubs that are out there. And I can't wait to hear JJ's thoughts. I was just going to exceed my time, but this is the one where I have the biggest questions about what happens to PSG this upcoming summer. More so than Manchester United, which might sound crazy to people, but PSG for me is the one that is so unknown. I don't know which direction they're going to go in and who's going to be leading the charge.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting counter questions from Jimmy. In terms of the ownership, in terms of the ownership, I don't think PSG will be on the market anytime soon. PSG's Qatari owners still have unfinished business. They'll want to win that Champions League title at least once. They've got the state-of-the-art training center and facility that's in the works as well, which is a couple of years off being finished. So I don't see them sort of throwing in the towel anytime soon, but I do expect wholesale changes. I don't think that Pochettino will be there next season. There's still strong speculation that Zinedine Zidane will come in. He is, the Qataris' first choice if they do move for another coach. Sporting director position as well. Leonardo expected to move on alongside Pochettino and a number of the players. Sergio Ramos doing his best to beg and plead with PSG for another chance after spending the majority of the season injured, got himself a goal against Angers. I mean, in terms of this game this weekend, they expect, given that PSG only need a draw to secure the title, I think that they will, regardless of the result. I'd rather that Lens at least manage to get a point because they've managed to get themselves back in European contention. And I think for Lens to get back into Europe would be huge for French football. I mean, you look at the passion of their fans, and some of the clubs that are challenging for Europe this season in France, Strasbourg, Lens, guys like that, they bring so much, to French football, and to have them back on the continental stage would be fantastic. So I hope that PSG don't run up a cricket score against them, which they can do with their eyes closed at times, given the resources that they have. But, we will see. Really, it's not really about this result. It's about what comes next, because once PSG have that title confirmed, they can start to put things in motion. Whether it's the star above the badge on the shirt, whether it's the new coach or the new sporting director. I think we'll start to learn a bit more about what PSG's future looks like once they have that title sewn up.
Speaking of wholesale changes, Keylor Navas hinting at the summer exit. Interesting choice.
Come to Newcastle.
Donnarumma not looking as secure as he did for Italy in the Euros. So something to keep an eye on if you are a PSG fan. So we'll do score predictions in this one. I'm kind of hesitant because we talk about cricket scores. How do you see this one playing out? Jimmy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll say, given what's at stake and what they want to do and how they want to finish. I'll go, with the 3-0 win they had the week against Angers. I will say Angers. I'll say 3-0. 3-0. I'll go back-to-back 3-0s. I'm going to say 3-0.
JJ?
I'm going to go for something a bit tighter than that. I'm going to say 2-1 PSG. I really wouldn't be disappointed with a draw. Like I said, I hope that Lens managed to stay in contention in Europe, but it's going to be difficult coming up against a PSG in festive atmosphere. And on the point of Keylor Navas as well, I think we all know what Navas was getting at. Age alone, Donnarumma is the logical choice for PSG to continue with. But Navas, for a team to potentially gamble on for the next 2 to 3 seasons, if he's given the number one role, which he's still capable of being, I think he'd be a fantastic pickup for many clubs around Europe. And I'm surprised, or I would be surprised, if there are not big teams in the Champions League, sort of snapping, knocking on PSG's door, trying to snap him up.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I still think it's going to be 3-0, JJ.
JJ, I just want to put this out there. My dogs heard you talking about a close game, and they were howling, saying, "What the hell is he thinking? This is going to be his tanking." So right on cue. All right. Final thoughts on just this weekend and what's at stake anywhere around the world. Jimmy?
Yeah, I'll go MLS. There's a big Texas derby that's happening. We got FC Dallas taking on the Houston Dynamo. Both of those teams survived the Open Cup. There's been a couple MLS teams that got knocked out of the U.S. Open Cup this midweek, which has been exciting to see. That's why we love the Cup competition, when the smaller teams have a chance to knock off the big teams. But and Austin, the other Texas team, did get knocked out by San Antonio. And Mike, you know all about that, which is a little unfortunate. But I will say that Dallas versus Houston Dynamo is a good one. They're both unbeaten in their last 6. They both are starting to find their identities under new coaches. And not only that, Dynamo will take on Austin FC the following week. So they've got back-to-back Texas derbies. FC Dallas will have Houston, and they play Sporting Kansas City, who, even when I was at Kansas City playing against Dallas, was one of our big rivals at that time. So a couple big rivalry games for the Texas teams, and I'm curious to see how they play and respond to some big ones coming up.
Well, for me, I've got 2 things. One, I'll finish in France, and that's that the news that Stéphanie Frappart has been elected to be the referee for this season's Coupe de France final. It'll be the first time a female has overseen a game there, so massive round of applause for her. Second, okay, fantastic applause. Yep. Thanks, guys.
That's great.
Second, and I wanted to actually throw this into our Italian chat, but seeing as we missed it, I'll come back to it. Have we been paying attention to Salernitana at the bottom of the table recently? Suddenly, out of nowhere, within they actually now have a shout at surviving. It's crazy. On 22 points with Genoa, Venezia. I know that, there's still 6 points off of Cagliari, but suddenly if they manage to pick up a few more points, that unthinkable survival, could actually come into being, which I found fairly interesting. They've been useless up until recently, and you do wonder if too much damage has been done. But 6 points on the bounce is
with the game in hand,
pretty good going.
Yeah, with a game in hand,
and
they play Cagliari at home, May 1st. No, excuse me, May 8th. Now I'm like tuned into it. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, JJ.
This is why JJ is on.
That's why he's here. That's why he's here.
No, guys, thank you for getting up early. No, JJ, you have us beat by hours and beat by.
I like to think that I'm up. I like to think that I'm up before 5 in the afternoon.
Hey, you never know. I sometimes question what Benj is doing over in London, but that's for another time.
It's all that Premier League football. It's all that Premier League football going to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, geez, you watch Manchester United long enough, you'll be asleep as well. No, thank you both for being on the show. I'm Michael Lahoud. Jimmy Conrad, thank you very much as always. Love the shirt. JJ, pleasure being on with you. So glad that we sorted out what to do with the star for PSG. If you enjoyed this show, thank you for listening or watching. Follow Qué Golazo on Twitter at Qué Golazo Pod. Subscribe to Qué Golazo on YouTube and follow Qué Golazo wherever you get podcasts. If you like the show, leave us a rating, a review. Until next time, ciao.